welcome to the first 2021 edition of Car Show Life. I'm Drake Donovan. Car show season is again in limbo because of COVID-19, but there is hope on the horizon for a normal second half of the year as the vaccines are being distributed. So we will keep our fingers crossed that we might be able to get out there once again this summer and enjoy our cars. So while we wait and plan, I hope that your winter projects are progressing along nicely. And since I don't have anything big that I'm doing to update my car, I'm going to focus on detailing. And with that, I've decided to invite an old friend from one of my Camaro clubs to join us today to discuss judging. He is a car show judge, proprietor of PIE Pie Customs in Louisville, Kentucky, and a great car show enthusiast. Please welcome to the show, David Owsley.
Hey, Mr. Sir, how are you, Drake? How are you?
Doing well, sir. It's been a long time since we spoke. I'm glad to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So, the last time we talked, you were still working at the tire store, talking about making a transition to working from home, but not working from home like, say, people are used to now. You have an entire garage set up outside of your house, an entire repair and installation shop. Tell us a little bit about that.
See, we moved here about 20 years ago, I guess, and I have had my own business since 1985. I was previously in the car stereo and accessory business, and as that business kind of waned on, I've transitioned into, as you said, a service manager and then manager at a tire store, and I retired in August. I still work one day a week because I need somebody to do paperwork, but the other 6 days a week are, working at home. So while everybody else gets a day off, self-employed people, you well know, don't have days off. So I have two different buildings. I have a shop that's a 40 by 60. And I have several lifts, and of course, whatever needs to be done there. I'm not a full service shop. I don't do any paint or anything like that, but electronics, accessories, some tuning, just pretty much whatever comes down the pike. And then I do have another building that I store things in, but it's been wonderful. I enjoy doing the stuff at home. I kind of work at my own pace, and always an interesting project around the corner. Never 2 days the same.
Yeah, that's and I can vouch for your skill. David helped me install the axle back exhaust on my 2011 Camaro. So thanks to your Sawzall and your 4-post lift, we were able to get that job done much better than I could have ever on my own. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
So let's talk about judging. How long have you been judging cars, and what got you started?
I started with little small local car shows in the late 80s. And then I had about 6 years of experience in ISCA, which is the International Show Car Association. That is the sanctioning body, i.e. NASCAR or NFL for show cars indoors. And that's been around quite a few years. So I did 6 or 7 seasons of that, where I actually traveled from show to show to show around the country and collected points toward international championships. I had 4 international championships with one car, and 2 international championships with 2 other cars in different years. And then I was also in 99, I was one of the top 10 in what was then called the Great Lakes Division, and I actually went to the finale in Texas. Unfortunately, my car wasn't of the caliber the others were. I was doing it on a working man's budget, not a millionaire's budget, but it was a great experience. And because I had so much experience in ISCA, the local show asked me to start judging there. I did that for several seasons, and then I branched out and actually did some shows for them in Cleveland and Detroit and Dayton and some other areas, Indianapolis, I think, and Cincinnati. And then, of course, I continue to do the local shows. I've been involved in our club and other clubs in setting up shows, and I was the judging supervisor for the Mopar National several years. Was a judging supervisor at Camaro 5 one year. So I've had a lot of different experience, not only the shows that, you and I would go to where we pop our hoods and open the trunks and sit in the parking lot and sit in a lawn chair, as well as the ones that, involve mirrors and displays and indoor lighting and all that.
Yeah. So that's something I didn't realize, that level of experience that you had. I think of judging as the guy with the clipboard walking around the cars at the high school or the church parking lot car show on Saturday and Sunday. But you have some big level nationwide touring experience too, which I was unaware of. So, and that brings me to my next question: is these the level of judging, like talking about you go to a local car show, it's usually maybe a participant judging, or you've got a couple people with clipboards, and maybe it's 100 or 200 point scale. What are these ISCA levels like? Is this like the Concord level? Is this the 1,000, 5,000 point type stuff?
Well, I've never done any concourse judging. That's a little different world, but most of what I would think the viewers would be interested in would be a local car show, a church or a school or a charity that puts on a show, and most of those are fairly simple judging, and everybody that is a judge has a different criteria. What I always follow is what ISCA told me when I started judging. The three most important things were the quantity of work, the quality of work, and the attention to detail. Not necessarily in that order. Taste has no bearing on judging a car, should not. Guy who likes black cars should like red cars and judging as well as blue cars, shouldn't matter. Just because somebody does something you don't like to their car, that shouldn't enter in. What I see most local judges look at is cleanliness. People that have an extremely clean car, very well detailed, tend to impress people and judges, generally speaking, more than radical body work and things of that sort. We don't have time to crawl all over a car at a parking lot, where we would in ISCA, where we have all night to judge. So, the important things that, you don't want mud on the wheels or dirt in the engine or, whatever you're showing, I think is probably the most important thing. Also making sure the car is open. Most judges don't care much for, your trunk's full of the junk you brought with you. So it's, it closed that, if you don't care about a trophy, that's fine if you don't care about winning. But if you want to, have a competitive car, I think, all the areas need to be judged. The hood needs to be open, the engine, even if the engine's just the original engine, it needs to be clean. If the interior is just the stock interior, it still needs to be clean. So I think that's very important.
Now, on that subject, what do you think is one of the most overlooked areas in detailing when you're talking about cleanliness? What would it be when you're judging a car and you're like, let's see if he got to this?
I don't know if you remember Ronnie
Yep.
Floyd from our club, but Ronnie was always particular about the little grooves inside the pulley on the belt tensioner.
Yes.
That was just something I remember from years that he always picked out. A lot of times, panels that are scratched or not addressed, things that are so simple, they leave, trash in the cup holders of the seat or the back seat, it just, that's stuff that it makes a big difference when you're looking at 10 Camaros that are all basically the same, especially when it's a Camaro show or a Mopar show or something like that. For me, one of the most important things has always been the outside appearance of the vehicle. No extra wax. The car is presented in a good way. Don't try to put 100 stuffed animals over the scratch in the quarter panel. I can tell you now that most judges will look at the side you don't want them to look at, because they know, like you and I know, that when we know what's wrong with our car, and when you try to hide it, it doesn't help much.
And I know that because I would strategically put my show board in front of the big gouge
Exactly.
in the splitter.
Exactly.
So show board was always displayed on the driver's side at an angle.
And that's when I was judging indoor cars, I would get out of the golf cart, or if we had to walk, I would walk immediately to the passenger side that was behind the rope on the other side and look at that side first. So, that tells you a whole lot about the car.
Although I did get away with one once. Camaro Nationals in Frederick, Maryland. They do a covered bridge cruise the day before the show opens, and we were on the covered bridge tour, and a stone kicked up and hit my windshield, and I thought, oh well, that sucks, but didn't leave a mark or anything. Well, the next day we're at the show, and it was raining off and on, so the car was closed up, top was up, and so I'm detailing the outside of it. Well, it got really hot. And next thing I know, I look at my windshield. There is a crack behind the windshield wiper going up the
Oh
windshield.
my.
Well, wouldn't you know it? I got to put a placard on the in the window with my class and my number and everything. So that went behind the windshield wiper, covered that scratch. Nobody looked at the crack. I took first place in my class on cracked windshield. So
I
sometimes
remember
it does
going.
work.
I remember going to a show one time, and the guy had a headlight cover on one side, and the other side was missing. And he had a little business card that he laid there and said, "Headlight cover removed for inspection." Later on, I found out it blew off on the way home. On the way there to the show.
So, when you have a situation like you were saying, judging like a bunch of Camaros in a row that are all the same model, like a fifth gen Camaro, um, when you got, say, two cars that are just dead even in points, how deep do you go? Where do you start looking for missed areas or imperfections to try to break the tie?
If it was outdoor shows, um, I would say if they were 100% equal, then I would try to look for the back to the quantity of the work and see which car had the most work in it. Two cars that were equally clean, that equally had it were open and all the things we talked about. And one car had painted stripes that were buried in the clear, and the other car had stickers on it. That would be enough to move it one way or the other. Or if they had just done that small bit of extra amount of work. It's very unusual that you find two cars that are, unless you're judging stock cars, and that's not something I've done a lot of. That's why I say the concourse stuff's a different kind of world. But unless they're purely identical, you can usually find something that's different. One thing I will say, if you ever want to judge a show, is try to be knowledgeable about the kind of vehicles you're looking at. A guy that builds late model muscle cars is not a very good guy to judge a street rod show. I know a little bit. I'm not the biggest street rod fan in the world, but if you don't know that was a chopped and channeled body, you completely miss all that kind of work.
Yeah. But same thing can be said for different makes and models at the Camaro Superfest in Ypsilanti, Michigan. The
Sure.
Michigan Firebird Club serves as the judges. And while the first through fourth generation cars are similar to the Firebird, the fifth and sixth gen cars, they miss some stuff. And one time they were trying to dock people with fifth gens for having dirt below their door. Well, there is a clear factory installed, what do they call that?
Rock guard.
Rock guard. That does not come 100% clean. No matter how much you try to detail that, you are still going to get a little seam or shadow. And he said, "Well, no, we got to dock you for that." And it's like, no, that's on every one of these cars. You got to look around. You'll see them. Now, on a black car, it won't show up, but on a yellow one or a white one, you're going to see a little bit of a shadow. And some of that is to deal with the light refraction. And sometimes it's just dirt you can't get out, but it's on the car. And so that was a big gripe. I remember the last time I was at the Superfest 2017, 2018. A lot of the fifth gen folks were a little upset with the Firebird Club for not recognizing it. We thought, oh, they're just mad because they don't have a fifth gen Firebird. That's why they're taking it out on us. What is something that the biggest whiner maybe that you recall judging?
I don't know that I've had any terrible experiences. Um, I can recant a story to you that involves a whiner. I was in a car club, and the president and I guess his wife had started the club, and her name was Irene Smith. And Irene had a nice car. It was a 40 sedan, Chevy sedan, and it was nice, but it was nothing spectacular. But if she didn't win a trophy everywhere she went, she would get mad. Now we're talking about, 25, 30 years ago. So it was quite a while back. So she went to one show and made such a big fuss. The next year, when you came in the show, they handed you a trophy. It might be a football trophy, it might be a basketball trophy, it might be a golf trophy, and they all said compliments of Irene Smith. So be careful, be careful how much you whine because it might come back and get you.
That's a good story. What would be, in your recollection, the most impressive car that you ever judged?
Inside car, outside, anything.
Every show you've ever judged, what would be the most impressive thing that you've had to?
I had the pleasure of judging Irmi and Moroso's Golden Star, which was an ISCA international champion. He was the top car, and I would say probably 1995 or somewhere in that area. Um, it was it was a T bucket, if you know what that is. Bucket T car. It had a Ford Offenhauser 4-cam motor that was an Indy motor that had been re-engineered to run backwards, so the motor could be in the front of the car instead of in the back of the car. Um, and what impressed me the most is the car had all stainless steel lines, all polished, and they were all in little bulkheads as they went down the frame, and all the bulkheads were painted the body color of the car and wet sanded and buffed and beautiful, and all that stainless steel tubing on every wire, every fluid ran through those bulkheads, and there was no seams. The bulkheads didn't come apart. So they had to put those bulkheads, those lines in there, and then bend them after they had them in there and polish them and move them back and forth to get them polished and not scratch that paint. I mean, it was literally perfect. Every single bolt was turned the same direction. All the flats were at the bottom. It was just it was very little car there. There wasn't a lot there. There was no top. There was no engine cover. It had a full belly pan, but it was removed, for the show. But it was literally the closest to a perfect car I had ever seen.
Wow.
I don't know that it impressed me the most of every car I've ever seen, but that was by far the nicest, most articulate. He took the rule book and did exactly what he had to do to win, and it won every time it went anywhere, I think.
That's an interesting story because it's like not something you think about, having every bolt turned the same way, having all that conduit taken care of and cleanly hidden away, if you will. Yeah, that's not the answer I was expecting. That's pretty cool.
Well, I've seen several really nice cars in my life, and I've been fortunate enough to judge several Chip Foose cars and Scott Sullivan and some famous builders, Boyd Coddington. I actually worked for a gentleman that did upholsteries here in Louisville, and I actually did a lot of car stereo and Boyd Coddington cars for quite a few years that were shipped here for interior. So I've seen a lot of really nice cars, especially ones that were not all put together yet. And a quality car, something that we're talking about, north of 6-figure cars 20 years ago. There's a lot of thought and time put into those. That's a show car. That's what, every corner of the car, every quarter of an inch is considered, and there's not any one stone unturned. So it's a level of detail beyond what a normal person could do.
Yeah. Well, back to mere mortals.
Yes.
Talking about the etiquette of when you're at one of these shows and the folks come around with the clipboards. What should the etiquette that one should obey when they're at a show and their car is being judged?
I think to casually get eye contact and recognize that you're there and you're the owner. And if they're receptive to it, you can always say something like, if, I own the car, if I can help you with anything, or if I can answer any questions, please let me know, and then back away. Um, most people stand there and tell you about all the things they've done to the car, and all the judges and shows that they've won, and all the particulars, and that's all nice. We all want to have a good time and enjoy our conversation, but when somebody's judging your car, that's not the time for that. It doesn't help me any. I don't take away for it, because I think enthusiasm is important, but I don't think it really garners any extra time for you. Um, you're better off just to be polite. Most judges will ask you if they have a question, is this kind of motor, or did that interior come originally, or did you have the paint done, anything that they want to know. Um, but I think that's enough. And the other part of etiquette that I think is important is to remember that we're all here to have a fun time. If you have to go to a show and win a trophy to be happy, you're better off to stay at home. It's all fun. We have a good time. Most of the outdoor shows you and I are going to go to, and are just, as you say, mere mortals. This is all just for our pleasure. The people that are judging don't all have the same etiquette that a paid professional judge would have. They're usually people they grab from the crowd, like our Camaro president or something like that. So appreciate the show. Go for the charity if that's what it is. Get you a nice hot dog or a burger and a little sunshade, and enjoy the time. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And then last thing, when it comes to presentation etiquette, I've heard, I think it was the first show I ever went to in Louisville was at the Bob Hook Chevrolet dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the folks was telling me, oh, make sure you don't have any stones in your treads. Huh, okay. And then, so, what is some presentation etiquette that you should, somebody else told me, with these 5th gen Camaros, the vents close very nicely and flush. You have your vents closed. Some people believe in putting your seat belts, locking them in place and having those out. So what are some things that you've seen or heard of or know that people should consider when showing their car?
Well, I think your car and your presentation should be your own theme. If you look at your car and you think your car looks better with the steering wheel turned upside down, that's up to you. Personally, I think the steering wheel ought to be straight. I think you're right. I think the vents ought to be closed. If the seat belts look prettier or more attractive buckled and in the seat than hanging on the seat loose where they're not attractive, then I think that's what you should do. Different cars will have a different answer for that. And like you and I with convertibles, as much as I like the way a car looks with a convertible top down, really, if you can't judge the top with it up, you're missing that whole area of the car. So, I always, when I was really concerned about showing the car, I would show the car with the top up, and then offer for the judges to put it down if they wanted me to see that. They wanted to see that part. So a lot of it is just personal taste. Some cars don't look very good with the doors open. The door jambs are not very nice. But if you don't open a door so a judge can see those door jambs, you're not going to get any points for that area.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. Something I never thought about too is, the top up, top down thing took me by surprise when I went to some shows where I was like, well, wait a minute. Then you can't see the interior. I was like, I'm making it easier for you to judge the interior, but they want to see the top. So,
Right.
Yeah, having the top up, having the windows up, access to your trunk area. So, you kind of set up a place off to the side where you put all your detail products in your chair and your cooler and everything.
Exactly.
So, what do you got going on in that shop of yours? What are you working on these days?
Well, today I'm putting a pretty good size radio on a Chevy pickup truck, and I've got a 50 Chevy I'm wiring. I've built quite a few cars with this guy, and he gets them to a certain point, and I wire them. I got a 39 Ford waiting in the other garage to get a motor change and different gear. And we're going to going to change the pedals from the floor up into the dash and add air conditioning. I've got a 60 Chevy pickup truck coming for AC install. So there's lots of different things going on here. Of course, the biggest project is my Pro Touring Buick, which has been my project for 19 years. I think I've owned this car, so it's not coming to fruition yet, but it's made some big steps. I went to Idaho and 52-hour drive to pick up a body that was rust free to have some parts. So if you decide to build a car, be careful which you pick, because it's a lot easier to build a Chevy than it is to build a Buick or a Pontiac. So
That's true. But once you get that car done, it's going to be one of those cars at the show. It's like, oh, look at that Buick. You don't see a lot of those.
Exactly. Well, this car, I don't know if you remember the story, but this car has got an interesting story to it as well. When I was just a little boy, the man that owned it was my youth group leader at church, and I actually rode in this car when it was new. So I followed it all its life. So it'll mean a lot to me too.
Well, that's what we love here at Car Show Life are those stories behind the cars, because the cars can't talk, and a lot of times when you go to the show, the owner's off getting a hot dog or claiming their door prize ticket or whatever, so you aren't able to ask the question. So that's why I create the show boards and tell those stories, because those are great stories to tell. When you'll be able to say, I rode in this car when it was brand new, and now I've brought it back to life. So, well, David, it's been great catching up with you, man, and thank you for all the insights on judging. I think this will go a long way to help people understand what it takes. It's one thing for you to detail your car and go to the car show and hope to get a trophy, but it's another thing to understand the mechanics of how cars are judged and how you should present your car and how you should behave, because that can go a long way in everyone's enjoyment of the show, and maybe you will get that trophy in the end.
Glad to be of help. It's always been nice to help you any time I can, and I love this hobby's been my hobby all my life, so I don't think it's going to change any. I've been crazy about cars since I was a child.
All right. Well, thank you, David. And if you want to check out David's work, is it PIEcustoms.com?
Well, yes, but the actually PIE Customs on Facebook is where I post most of my my pictures and my information. That's the best place to look. And like they say, don't forget to hit the like button on there. So
exactly. All right, David Owsley, thank you for being with us today on Car Show Life.
Thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Car Show Life, back in Hood Up, or you can email directly at info@carshowlife.net. And as always, you can also leave a comment here on NorthcentralPA.com. Thanks to my guest, David Owsley. A big thank you to Phoebe Freer for her production assistance and everyone at North Central PA Media. My name's Drake Donovan. Go forth and live that car show life, back in Hood Up.